you may. Your factoring of trinomials. Okay, so we've done 4 terms you group. Trinomials are 3 terms. Okay, there's 2 different methods that you guys learn. Well, 2 different methods that exist. You guys probably guessed and checked the majority of the time. And while that's helpful, splitting the middle term is going to be a way that is a little bit more certain, because what happens sometimes when you guess and check is you end up getting frustrated because you feel like you've guessed everything and nothing seems to be working. And this splitting of the middle term method that I'm going to teach you is going to be a sure bet to get the answer every time. Okay? So on this first example, let me remind you what guess and check looks like. A trinomial, like everything else, you want to look and see if there's a GCF to start. Is there? No. So we're done there. Now, trinomials across the boards are always going to factor into binomial times binomial. Have you heard of FOIL? First, outer, inner, last. So you're sort of guessing and checking. The first 2 terms need to multiply to get you x squared. Now, there's only one way in the world that that can happen. X times x. So your first, in this case, is non-negotiable. It has to be x and x. And then your last 2 terms need to multiply to be 8. Now here's where you have a ton of options. Well, maybe not a ton here, but positive 1, positive 8, negative 1, negative 8, positive 2, positive 4, negative 2, negative 4. All of those could multiply to give you positive 8. So you can't just pick any 2 and say that you're done, right? It has to, you guess at first, but then you have to check. Because let's say for a second I do, and don't do this until you watch me guess and check. Let's say I guess positive 1, positive 8, which is going to be plus 1, plus 8. So my first works and my last works. But it's FOIL. First works and last works. The checking comes with your outer and inner. Because when you do your outer and when you do your inner products, they have to combine to give you the middle. So what is 8x, that's your outer product, combined with 1x, that's your inner product. 8x and 1x combined to be what? 9x, right? Is our middle term 9x? No, so that guess was wrong. So the more you do of these, the more of a knack you may have for just kind of it, just your gut tells you what it's going to be. What is, who knows the answer? Maggie. Plus 2 plus 4. Because we still get our 8, but our outer 4x and our inner 2x give us 6x. Okay? A couple general rules with guessing and checking. If this is a positive, then both terms have to be the same sign, right? Because either a negative times a negative would make a positive, or a positive times a positive would make a positive. So in the case that that's a positive, we know they both have to be the same sign, either a double negative or a double positive. If you want to know exactly what that sign is in that scenario, look to the middle term. And because that's a plus and that's a plus, they both have to be pluses. Okay? Let's jump down to number 4, actually. So, is there a GCF? No, right? So set up your binomial times binomial. 3x squared. What times what gives you 3x squared? You only have one option. There is no guessing involved here. This is the only option. Go ahead, Bo. 3x and x. Okay? Now, I chose to jump to number 4 because it's a positive 10. So because 2 numbers have to multiply to get positive 10, it either needs to be a plus plus or a minus minus. It has to be the same sign in order to get a multiplying to positive 10. So we look to our middle term to see what that sign is going to be. And since the middle term is negative, I now know it's minus minus. Now, with 10, you have two options, which is really going to turn into 4 here. Because if I think of 1 in 10 and guess 1 in 10, don't do this until we confirm it's right, just watch. If I test 1 in 10, negative 1, negative 10, multiplies to get 10, my outer is negative 30, my inner is negative 1. Negative 30 and negative 1 combine to be negative 31. Is that what we want? No. But I'm not done testing 1 in 10. Because these two numbers are different, I also have to consider flipping that. Because the way I just had it, the 10 got multiplied by the 3. But if I flip them and put the 10 first and the 1 second, now I have to check negative 3, negative 10, and what do those combine to be? Negative 13, right? Negative 10, or negative 3x, negative 10x, is that what we want? Still not what we want, but do you see how 1 in 10 versus 10 in 1 right there yielded two different middle terms? That didn't happen up here. Whether it was 2 and 4 or 4 and 2, because they both were getting multiplied by a plain x, it was going to be the same no matter what. Okay? So you have to be careful of that when your first terms are different. But regardless, 10 and 1 doesn't work. So what is my other option to get 10? Negative 5, negative 2. So I either do negative 5, negative 2, or negative 2, negative 5, and it matters because I'm going to get a different thing either way. So if I do negative 5, negative 2, what is this product, John? Combined with a, gives you a, is that what we want? No, so that order is wrong. Not negative 5, negative 2. I probably want negative 2, negative 5, and I sure hope so because if not, I'm out of options. Right? There's nothing else for 10. So when we check this, Kaylee McAdam, what's my outer? What's my inner? And they combine to be, and so that's my answer. Okay? All right, so I just did 1 and 4 because they both end with positives. So your signs have to be the same thing, whether it's a double positive or a double negative is up for debate. 2 and 3 are going to make that a little bit more difficult because your last terms in these are negative. So let's kind of look at those. We'll do number 2. And luckily here our first term is x squared. So Aiden, what's our only option for the first two terms? X and x. Okay? Now, because it's negative, the two signs have to be different. But I don't know if it's minus plus or plus minus. Okay? I'm going to have to play around with that. And then I'm going to have to play around with 14 because I don't know if it's 1 and 14 or 2 and 7. So think of all the combinations there. I'm going to write down all the combinations. I don't want you to do this, but just look. It could be positive 1, negative 14. It could be negative 1, positive 14. It could be positive 2, negative 7. Could be negative 2, positive 7. Those are all your guesses, right? 14 is not that bad of a number because there are only 2 ways to get 14. But because of the sign flippings, that turns into 4 different guesses. So does anybody have a gut as to what that is? Fred. Positive, and why was that your gut? Right, so if you look at those and combining them, they give you negative 5. So let's try that. Positive 2, negative 7. So obviously that makes our negative 14. Our outer gives me what, Nate? Good, and our inner gives us, so what is negative 7x combined with 2x? Negative 5x, you see that? Okay. And this next one may be It's a little bit different, and you'll see in a second. But what have to be our first two terms, McKenna? Very good, 2x and x. Now we're a little bit lucky here with the 5, because you only have an option of 1 and 5, right? But because it's negative, we do have to flirt with whether it's positive 1, negative 5, or negative 1, positive 5, right? And keeping in mind that obviously one of those is going to get multiplied by 2x, and the other one's only getting multiplied by x. So our only options are positive 1, negative 5, or negative 1, positive 5. But we also have to kind of mess around with those being in either spot. So even if we pick positive 1, negative 5, for example, and check that, what's my outer? What's my inner? And so what's negative 10x with plus 1x going to make? Negative 9x. Is that what I want? No. So that positive 1, negative 5 didn't work in that order, but I could switch it and make my positive 1 over here and my negative 5 here. So that's 2x, right? And that's negative 5x. Does 2x minus 5x work? That's actually worse, right? So we were on to the right combo with, and I'm just going to put what I just had, positive 1, negative 5, but our signs were off, right? We got negative 9x. We wanted positive 9x. So that means we're good with those numbers there. We're getting the 9, it looks like. We just need to make it negative 9. So just flip your sign. So this is the positive 5, and this maybe is the negative 1, and check that. So our outer is 10x, minus 1x is 9x. Good? Okay. So here's where it gets ugly. 6x squared plus 1x minus 12. Here's why it's ugly, or maybe you can tell me right from the start. Why is this guessing and checking not good? Right, this is just going to get more difficult. So 2x and 3x it could be, but it also could be 1x and 6x. And then think about all those possibilities with the possibilities for negative 12. 1 and negative 12, negative 1 and 12. 2 and negative 6, negative 2 and 6. And then 3 and 4 and so on, and all the different combinations of that. Okay? We will pick up with this skill tomorrow. I have to change your home. Do I have to change your homework? Yeah. You're just going to guess and check all of them. Okay? Just the odds. And you'll see how it gets much more difficult later in the game. Man, I thought I got ahead of you yesterday, and it turns out I think I did.